like wind and sun.
Hello and welcome live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Gautam Roy, and coming up in the next hour, the Hamas confirms the death of the group's leader Yahya Sinwar, says Israeli hostages will not return until Gaza aggression stops. US President Joe Biden says the death of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar was a moment of justice and an opportunity to seek a path of peace in Gaza.
I told the Prime Minister of Israel yesterday, let's also make this moment an opportunity to seek a path to peace, a better future in Gaza without Hamas.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is to attend the BRICS summit in Russia next week. Russian President Vladimir Putin says BRICS group will generate most of the global economic growth. And India's President Droupadi Murmu holds talks with her Malawian counterpart Lazarus Mukathi Chakwera. Both the countries signed 4 memorandums of understanding. First up, the Hamas has confirmed that its chief, Yahya Sinwar, has indeed been eliminated by the Israeli Defense Forces on Thursday. But for those like top world leaders such as Joe Biden, Emmanuel Macron and Olaf Scholz, who have expressed hope of getting a ceasefire deal done in Gaza in a follow-up to the killing, the Hamas has poured cold water on their dreams of peace. While Israel's Netanyahu has urged Hamas to give up arms and return the 7th of October hostages, the Hamas has said the hostages won't be returned till Israel's war in Gaza stops.
The final moments of Hamas chief Yahya Sinwar, caught on an Israeli military video on Thursday, where he even threw a stick at the drone which filmed him just before his elimination. Initially, the IDF just indicated that it had killed 3 terrorists in a strike on Thursday, but hours later, after forensic confirmation using samples from remains and dental records, it put out simple 3-worded post: eliminated Yahya Sinwar. Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and Foreign Minister Israel Katz also confirmed the killing, which was followed soon after by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who also said that this could usher in an end to the war in Gaza if Hamas laid down their arms and returned all hostages.
Yahya Sinwar is dead. He was killed in Rafah by the brave soldiers of the Israel Defense Forces. While this is not the end of the war in Gaza, it's the beginning of the end. To the people of Gaza, I have a simple message. This war can end tomorrow. It can end if Hamas lays down its arms and returns our hostages.
The Hamas's confirmation of their leader's death came on Friday, with its chief negotiator, Khalil al-Hayya, announcing that he was killed in combat. The group also said that Israeli hostages will not return until Gaza's aggression stops. Israelis in Sderot, a town bordering Gaza, danced in the streets and distributed sweets to celebrate the death of a bitter enemy, and reactions poured in thick and fast from world leaders ranging from French President Emmanuel Macron, who termed Sinwar's death a turning point, to German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, who said he hopes Sinwar's death will open the door to a ceasefire. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said Sinwar's death is certainly significantly weakening Hamas, while NATO Chief Mark Rutte quipped that he won't miss the Hamas leader. US President Joe Biden and his Vice President Kamala Harris also saw a silver lining in Sinwar's elimination.
The death of the leader of Hamas represents a moment of justice. He had the blood of Americans and Israelis, Palestinians and Germans and so many others on his hands. I told the Prime Minister of Israel yesterday, let's also make this moment an opportunity to seek a path to peace, a better future in Gaza without Hamas.
Friday saw White House spokesperson John Kirby dubbing Sinwar as the chief obstacle to securing a ceasefire in Gaza, and his killing by Israel's defense force creates an inflection point that could accelerate talks to wind down the war. But Kirby also said it's too soon to know how Hamas will respond to the elimination. Palestinians held prayers in mosques to mourn the death of the Hamas leader. Hezbollah also issued a statement of sorrow, while Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi dubbed Sinwar a martyr and said the cause of the Palestinian liberation is more alive than ever. Since the 7th of October Hamas attack, which was masterminded by Sinwar, Israel has eliminated over a dozen key Hamas and Hezbollah leaders and military commanders, including their top echelons. But even on Friday, after the triumph of having eliminated Sinwar, Israel keeps pressing ahead with its military campaign in Lebanon against the Hezbollah. And Israel's hunt in Gaza may still well be on, as its military released a video purported to be that of Mohammed Sinwar being driven down a Gaza tunnel almost a year ago, adding to the speculation that he could succeed his slain brother. Gautam Roy's report, DD India.
Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni held talks with Lebanon's caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati in Lebanese capital Beirut on Thursday. During the visit, the Lebanese Prime Minister in a joint news conference said that both leaders agreed that a diplomatic solution must take precedence over violence. The UN peacekeeping force UNIFIL is stationed in southern Lebanon to monitor hostilities along the demarcation line with Israel. We'll be returning to the story to talk to our expert guest a little later in the show, but for the moment we're moving on. Now, South Korea's spy agency said that North Korea has dispatched 1,500 Special Forces troops to Russia for combat training, raising an alarm over their potential deployment in Ukraine. This move follows North Korea's constitutional revisions, branding South Korea as a hostile state. Amid escalating hostilities, North Korea has also destroyed inter-Korean transport links, intensifying concerns among residents near the border.
South Korea's spy agency said on Friday that North Korea has shipped 1,500 Special Forces troops to Russia's Far East for training and acclimatizing at local military bases and will likely be deployed for combat in the war in Ukraine. South Korea's National Intelligence Service also released satellite images to show military facilities in Russia where North Korean personnel were gathered. North Korea's recent constitutional revisions classifying South Korea as a hostile state has heightened tensions in the Korean peninsula. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un urged his military to regard South Korea as an enemy and warned that the North would not hesitate to retaliate if its sovereignty were threatened. Analysts say North's constitutional amendment essentially serves as leader Kim Jong-un's survival strategy.
I believe that North Korea's strategic goal of moving towards two hostile states is essentially Kim Jong-un's survival strategy. In other words, Kim Jong-un is saying, let's build a wall between the two Koreas so we are not conscious of each other and each of us can survive on our own.
Recently, North Korea blew up sanctions of inter-Korean roads and rail lines on its side of the heavily fortified border between the two Koreas. South Koreans living in Paju province, which borders North Korea, raise concerns about Pyongyang blowing up sections of the key inter-Korean roads and railways.
At that time, I thought it was just a show from North Korea. After that, I thought they would be trying to extort money. Then later, after thinking about it more and seeing them blowing road and railroad, I became concerned.
In another development, Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba Shigeru met with the families of Japanese nationals abducted by North Korea and said he will make all-out efforts to quickly bring them home. It was the first such meeting since Ishiba became Prime Minister, taking place on Thursday at the Prime Minister's office in Tokyo. Rabindra Chauhan's report for DD India.
Now, violence and chaos gripped Pakistan's Punjab province as protests erupted following the alleged assault of a college student. From Lahore to Rawalpindi, students demanded justice, accusing authorities of a cover-up, while tensions escalated amidst growing political unrest. DD India's Droupadi with this report.
These streets tell us a story of fear and anger. Chaos erupted in Lahore as news of a brutal rape on a college student sent shockwaves across the city. What started as a gathering at the gates of Punjab College spiraled into a violence. Flames engulfed the parking lot, windows shattered, and protesters armed with iron rods and clubs surged throughout the campus. The director of Punjab Group of Colleges, the institution at the centre of these accusations, has outright denied the incident, fueling public outrage.
Even the most parking lots have cameras, yet they didn't. Was a parking lot that poorly equipped? They had cameras and all the evidence, but they are hiding it. They have bribed government and top officials to cover up the truth, just to protect their institution's reputation.
The unrest did not stop in Lahore. It spread like wildfire across Punjab, from major institutions in Lahore to the streets of Rawalpindi. Anger mounted as accusations of a cover-up deepened, pushing students in Rawalpindi on the streets. Over 380 were arrested as police cracked down on demonstrators with tear gas and gunfire.
Information isn't going viral on social media without reason. We are holding a peaceful protest, but the police have mistreated us, using tear gas and even opening fire. Why did they do this? We are standing up for rights and seeking justice.
In response, the authorities ordered the immediate closure of all educational institutions in Punjab, affecting approximately 26 million of students. Public gatherings have been banned across the province, tightening the government's grip on any further unrest. But this is just one piece of the jigsaw puzzle. Pakistan's streets are not only echoing cries of social injustice, but also the rumblings of political warfare. Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, led by former Prime Minister Imran Khan, is staging nationwide protests against the proposed constitutional changes and his controversial arrest. With demonstrations sweeping the country, the party is sending a clear message: the constitution will not be altered. Droupadi for DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Hour, polls show that the US presidential race remains extremely close. NATO chief Mark Rutte says Russia may be loud, but NATO is strong.
Today's episode was all about unique ideas that help us adapt to this new world where so much around us is changing.
We are forming communities to practice regenerative farming and learn how to control these problems naturally.
We have invested in a new battery park to stabilize it, and that makes it also easier for us to phase in renewables like wind and sun.
We're developing some AI tools which use imagery in our grow rooms. They can monitor them on a 24-hour basis, and they help us understand the prime time for picking so that we harvest those mushrooms at the perfect time of ripeness.
I have been using Ravichandran's vermicompost and have had good yields. Now I have used it for this 2-acre maize field. I'm planning to use it continuously. So far, the yield is good and the crops are doing well.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, US President Joe Biden has urged the West on Friday to sustain its support for Ukraine against Russia's full-scale invasion as Kyiv faces a bleak winter, and a looming US presidential election raises worries about the strength of Washington's own resolve. Biden was speaking to reporters before holding closed-door talks with ally German Chancellor Olaf Scholz during a swan-song one-day trip to Berlin to discuss matters ranging from Ukraine to the expanding conflict in West Asia. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and French President Emmanuel Macron joined Biden and Scholz in the afternoon for talks during the so-called Quad meeting focused largely on how to end the fighting in Ukraine as Russian forces advance in the east. And NATO defense ministers also gathered in Brussels for a second day of the summit. On Friday, the meeting was held under the new NATO Secretary General, Mark Rutte. The leaders discussed continuing military aid to Ukraine. After chairing his first NATO defense ministers meeting, the new NATO chief condemned Putin's increasing rhetoric.
Russia remains the most significant and direct threat to the security of the Allies. And Putin is resorting to increasingly irresponsible rhetoric. Moscow may be loud, but NATO is strong.
Now to the US, where all attention is focused on the high-stakes battle between Vice President and Democratic nominee Kamala Harris and former President and Republican nominee Donald Trump on the 5th of November. Polls show that the presidential race remains extremely close. As the date for the clash nears, the campaign trail is also heating up. Both Trump and Harris are engaged in last-moment campaigning and canvassing to ensure their victory in the presidential race. Here's more in this report.
With the U.S. presidential election just over 2 weeks away, the campaigns for Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris and the Republican nominee Donald Trump are going into overdrive. Two bigwigs running for the White House. They're engaged in attacks and counterattacks and making every effort to woo the voters. Republican Trump threw jabs at his political rivals while touching upon his own legal troubles in a speech at a Catholic fundraising event on Thursday.
If she does any worse in the polls, they're going to bring him back again, I think. Chuck, he's going to do it. He's the one that got him out. That's the guy. Much more so than Crazy Nancy, I will tell you. Because I know him. He did it. Joe has almost disappeared from view. The only way he could be seen less is if he had a show on CNN. They had nothing. They've got nothing. Fake news, right? Fake.
During a campaign event in La Crosse in Wisconsin, Democrat Kamala Harris lambasted the former President Donald Trump for calling January 6th Capitol attack a day of love and said that the U.S. election is going to be a tight race until the very end.
What did Donald Trump say last night about January 6th? He called it a, quote, a day of love. But it points out something that everyone here knows. The American people are exhausted with his gaslighting. This is going to be a tight race until the very end. Look, we are the underdog, and that's why we are, and I am campaigning to earn every single vote, because I intend to be a president for all Americans.
Democrat Kamala Harris will campaign for the first time with Barack Obama and Michelle Obama in separate events next week, hoping to inject some political star power in the final dash to Election Day in November. The former president and his wife remain immensely popular with the Democratic base and are expected to be effective closers in the final stretch of a campaign relying on turnout from loyal Democrats in states where victory margins are thin.
I'ma keep on running 'cause
Billionaire Tesla CEO Elon Musk, who has donated nearly $75 million to Trump-aligned groups, hit the campaign trail in Pennsylvania on Thursday, mobilizing Trump voters.
And the reason I'm here in person is because Pennsylvania is so important to the future of the world. You show what matters by your actions, not your words. And my actions are, I'm here, I'm in Pennsylvania.
Meanwhile, strong early voting took place in North Carolina, just weeks after Hurricane Helene left some residents without power, running water and phone service. North Carolina could be crucial in determining a winner in the U.S. presidential race, as its voting preferences could swing either way. Polls show a very tight race, with a handful of swing states likely to determine the winner, as Trump and Harris are in a dead heat in North Carolina. Raghav Kumar Jha's report, DD India.
Well, we now take you across straight live to my colleague Amritpal Singh, who's joining us from San Francisco in the US. Amrit, we just showed our viewers a little bit about how early voting is going on in North Carolina. What more can you tell us about that? It is a key battleground state.
These early polls, the turnout is huge, 200,000 in the first few hours on Thursday when it opened. We saw a similar thing in Georgia as well. So clearly it is a close race in North Carolina. North Carolina The difference of the percentage points is just about 0.5%, which is really no margin, given there is a margin of error. So North Carolina being a swing state, it is very, very important, though for the past 4 times it has gone to the Republicans. I think 2008 was when Barack Obama won the state. That's the only time the Democrats won it. So it's been consistently with the Republicans since then. The last time around also Donald Trump took the state. So it looks like it is a very close contest, and it's not going to be easy for Kamala in North Carolina.
Well, that just tells us that the 5th of November could also go down to the wire. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Amritpal Singh. Now, the rise of the Indian American community in the US is a focus in this election season. Indian origin Deputy Mayor of New York City, Meera Joshi, in an exclusive conversation with DD India's Shubhendu Ghosh, speaks about her shared cultural heritage, the migrant crisis, and the priorities of New York City in this election.
There are some 5 million Indian Americans in the United States. It may be a small percentage of the population, but they're playing increasingly important, often leadership role in diverse domains of the American society. I have with me one such leader, the Deputy Mayor of New York City, Meera Joshi. Welcome to DD India, ma'am. Thank you. First, I'd like to learn from you the manner in which you reflect on your Indian American heritage and your experience of public service in this beautiful city.
So I think I look back to, my father came here decades ago now. He's passed now. But he came from a family of public service in India. And so in some ways, I feel like I'm continuing that tradition in America.
The importance that Indian American community represents in the larger diversity of New York, of the United States, what can you tell us about it?
You can see across the nation, Indians are playing a larger role in politics. They're taking leadership positions in roles that, this is the first year we've seen mayors, senators, congressmen, possible president. But the other way, and I'd say this is a smaller but a very significant way, we're making Indian culture part of New York City culture.
In the context of your work, one of the important challenges that is faced by New York City, as I understand, is the migrant crisis. What can you tell us about it, and what is being done to address the challenge?
So like many global cities that are the economic epicenter of a nation, we attract people that are looking for opportunity. And we've seen an influx of that in a volume and at a pace and in a short duration that is a historical high. The other thing about New York City is we are a sanctuary city. If you come here, we will house you, we will feed you, we will ensure that your child has a school to go to. That makes us unique, and that also makes us very popular. We've risen to the challenge. I'm not going to say it hasn't been a strain. It has been a strain. But we have really managed in a way that New Yorkers do when crisis calls, that is uniquely part of the spirit of the city. And now we're at a place where we're seeing it dissipate. So we're taking some of the tents down that we've had to use to house people. And now it's time to integrate. We're a city built on immigration, and this is the next wave of it. So we're happy to have people come. This is a city of opportunity. The pace has been hard to handle, but the ultimate integration is going to happen.
Finally, it must be a busy time for you as an administrator. You handle multiple portfolios, including infrastructure. It's also time for presidential elections. What are your key priorities for the city going forward?
Like every city around the world, we're going to be led by the climate crisis. We have to ensure that our infrastructure is well maintained and is ready to protect us for the times ahead. So part of what we do is ensure that we're building well. So I think that this is just the world we live in now, and resiliency and funding projects that fight the climate crisis are going to be bipartisan.
Thank you very much for speaking with DD India. That was the Deputy Mayor of New York City, Meera Joshi, talking about her Indian American heritage and key priorities at work, with camera person Jaishankar Shubhendu Ghosh for DD India in New York.
Now, India's President Droupadi Murmu, who is visiting Malawi in Africa as part of her 3 African nations visit, held a bilateral meeting with her Malawi counterpart, Lazarus McCarthy Chakwera, with a focus on issues to improve trade and economic activities between the two countries. 4 memorandums of understanding have been signed between India and Malawi following bilateral and delegation level talks in the following sectors, which is cooperation in art and culture, sports cooperation, cooperation on youth matters and pharmaceutical cooperation.
Following the bilateral talks, both the leaders witnessed the signing and exchanging of 4 memorandums of understanding in the fields of art and culture, cooperation on youth matters, sports cooperation, and pharmacopoeial cooperation. Following the signing of these 4 MOUs, the two leaders also witnessed the symbolic handing over of 1,000 metric tons of rice and the Bhabatron cancer treating machine to Malawi. Both these are gifts as a goodwill gesture from India to Malawi.
And earlier in the day, the President visited the National War Memorial of Malawi and laid a wreath there. The War Memorial was built in the honor of soldiers and civilians who lost their lives in the First and Second World Wars. The President also visited the Kamuzu Mausoleum, the resting place of first President, founder and father of the Malawian nation, Dr. Hastings Kamuzu Banda. And India's Ministry of External Affairs, that's our Foreign Ministry, held a media briefing on the significance of President Murmu's visit to Malawi and what transpired during the high-level exchanges that took place during this visit. The MEA dubbed the Indian President's Malawi visit as historic, as it is the first ever visit by an Indian head of state to the African nation in 60 years. The MEA also outlined the significance of India-Malawi relations.
This is a historic visit, as it is the first ever visit by the President of India to Malawi in the last 60 years since the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries. India was one of the first countries to establish diplomatic relations with Malawi soon after the country's independence in 1964. India and Malawi share a cordial and friendly relationship reinforced by strong people-to-people ties which span over 140 years. Malawi remains one of our special partners in Africa, and India has strong development partnership with Malawi. It is in this context that the visit of the Honorable President assumes great significance. Coincidentally, this year also marks the 60th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between our two countries. I must add here that our people-to-people ties predate our official relations and go back over a century.
And DD India's Amit Mukherjee has sent us this report from Lilongwe in Malawi.
While during the visit of President Droupadi Murmu, 1,000 metric ton of rice and critical medical care equipment were handed over to the people of Malawi for their betterment, along with commitments of better financial and medical services. This visit by President Murmu will elevate the multifaceted relationship between the two nations to a new level. With camera person Sandeep in Lilongwe, Amit Mukherjee for DD India.
Now, India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal has said that inclusiveness is going to define the success story of India. Addressing the annual plenary session of the Indian Chambers of Commerce in New Delhi, he praised India's Prime Minister Modi for his very determined and honest effort in the last 10 years to ensure that every child born in this country is assured of the basic needs like water, electricity, food, health, education and digital connectivity.
We all recognize that inclusiveness is also going to define the success story of India. How inclusive we are in our various initiatives to involve 140 crore Indians. Prime Minister Modi in the last 10 years has made a very honest and determined effort, a very sincere effort to ensure that every child born in India are assured of the basic needs that each one of us has: food, clothing, shelter, electricity, all the utilities that one needs, water, electricity, digital connectivity, health, education.
And still to come on DD India News Hour, we'll be talking to our expert guest on the implications of top Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar's death. And India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar has said India's rise in the world would mean global peace, stability and harmony.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
The Northeast India is a land of rivers, and they have shaped the lives and the culture of the people living here. These are not mere water bodies, but the mental companion. These rivers have created an unseen umbilical bond with the people of the hills from where they flown out.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Well, the Hamas has confirmed that the killing of its top leader Yahya Sinwar by Israeli Defense Forces has indeed taken place, and at the same time they've said that this does not mean that the fighting in Gaza would end. It would not mean that hostages will be returned and they will lay down arms as has been demanded by Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, although a lot of leaders across the world, including Joe Biden, the American President, Olaf Scholz, the German Chancellor and also the French President have said that this could pave the way for peace in Gaza. Let's talk about this significant moment then. What does it actually mean for this conflict which has been raging and has been spreading as well, escalating as well into a wider region beyond Gaza? We are joined by noted defense expert, Lieutenant General retired Syed Atta Hasnain. Good evening to you, General Hasnain. What do you make of the prospects for peace, or do you think that this would trigger again more conflict and perhaps even wider implications as far as that region is concerned?
Thank you, Gautam. Thank you for inviting me to your program. Yes, it's a defining moment. A year and about 10 days after the 7th October 2023 incident, you find almost 15 to 16 members of the top leadership of the Hamas and Hezbollah both have been wiped out. Yahya was perhaps the last of them, but a very, very important military leader who was supposed to have been the mastermind behind the 7th October incident of 2023 and also the mastermind of the tunneling system, the defensive system of Gaza. Now, a year down in this conflict, it may appear with a cursory look that probably stamina is running out. Israel, for example, has a problem with its economy. From a 6.5% growth has come down to almost 2%, although the United States is backing it to the hilt completely. The Hamas, 40,000 people have died in Gaza. Gaza has been reduced to rubble. So one would expect that with the leadership down, the finances down, so many people having been killed, this perhaps may be the moment when possibly a ceasefire is something which could be negotiated. But this, when you look deeper into it, you realize that Israel's stamina can remain intact, as I said, with the US support and particularly with the American elections on at this time. Everything remains on the gray zone. And as far as Hamas is concerned, the battle has also been joined in the north by the Hezbollah. And here itself in down south, the spirit of perhaps sacrifice, that kind of a spirit could always revive, remembering the fact that Yahya had died fighting. He was not shot, he was not killed by a bombing effort or a rocket or a missile. He was actually killed in a last-ditch battle, in a gunfight. And that perhaps may inspire many to continue taking on this fight. So we really may not have seen the end of the war in the Middle East or in Gaza at the moment. And there is a possibility that this will continue for some more time. Definitely till the US elections.
Right. More pointers, in fact, not just the fact that the US election till we have a new president in place, and that extends that time period to January in the White House, that this war will end. But the other factors are Israel has basically changed its stance. Also the fact that Netanyahu doesn't want to face elections anytime soon. The other fact is that Israel now wants to create these zones, really buffer zones, where its population of Israelis is sequestered from the gamut of attackers that it has had over the decades, which includes the Hamas, the Hezbollah, the Houthis. Now Iran is also in the mix.
Yes, no doubt. Israel having been hit very badly on the 7th of October, 1,200 casualties for a nation of 9 million is a huge number. 250 hostages taken, has gone for something completely different. It's gone towards, first of all, hunting for the last terrorist, whether it be the Hamas or Hezbollah, neutralizing the capability of Iran to carry out its proxy warfare in this whole entire region, and yes, sequestering itself away from the possible attacks in the future, both from Gaza or from the northern borders in Lebanon. But having whatever it has achieved at the moment, it seems that the next generation of people, having killed 40,000 dead, and for terms of Palestinians, the Hamas Palestinians, it is obvious that this war is going to continue in some form or the other. This war may not necessarily be a shooting match. It could well be an insurgency kind of a battle affair which can continue for fairly long without exhaustion of too many resources.
Yeah, I can give you more reasons why it will still continue. The other is that Israel is still to hit back at Iran for the latest barrage of missiles and rockets which were fired at it. The other is that who would the negotiators really talk to? Because the last person who was taking a call on negotiations was Yahya Sinwar himself. Now it's being suggested that it might be his brother Muhammad. And interestingly, the IDF has released a video today where they've shown Muhammad sitting in a car in the passenger seat, moving around in some tunnels in Gaza, indicating perhaps that he could be the successor, and he could also indeed be the next person in the IDF's crosshairs.
See, Gautam, in these kind of situations, creating a new leadership is never easy. We have seen it happening in all kinds of areas in India too, where leaderships have been completely decimated, and we found that it takes a fairly long time for a new leadership to emerge. This is something which may happen here too, and therefore you are absolutely right. It is going to be difficult to find people to speak to, and then there are going to be dissensions within. You see, Hamas may not remain that kind of a monolith kind of an organization where it was complete support from Iran, the support from Qatar, or the leadership together in the kind of a focus against Israel. There will be many who would be wanting a ceasefire at this particular time. There will be many who will be wanting to continue the battle forever. So you're going to find a major problem in this, and therefore at some stage or the other, you will find a resumption of hostilities will take place. I don't see peace on the horizon, or the kind of peace that we imagine. I don't think we can see that on the horizon for some time.
And at the same time, you will keep hearing from the West, particularly America, Joe Biden and others, that we should use this opportunity to move towards peace and then galvanize the negotiators once again who had been engaged in talks in Doha. We have of late not heard much about that process.
Yes, absolutely. That process, and especially after the commencement of the campaign towards the northern borders, and that was perhaps one of the reasons why this whole thing was opened up by the Hezbollah at that time, we haven't really heard of much of a peace process. And with the Hamas side, that's the Gaza flank, now comparatively stabilized, this war is going to focus completely on the Hezbollah side. Because you may remember that 2006, we have memories of 2006 which persist in this region, and Israel will want to make sure that they overcome that, the negativity of 2006, and put an end to whatever is happening on the southern front in southern Lebanon at the moment, having overcome the issues with the Hamas in Gaza. So I don't foresee, once again, as I said, something stabilizing, at least in this window that we are looking at, which you very correctly assessed from now till 21st of January, that's when the inauguration of the new American president takes place.
And in the meantime, Gaza itself will remain a loose end. The Hamas may not be in the kind of shape and form that it was, but it can still perhaps be an effective guerrilla force.
Yes, there's no doubt about it, that despite a strong Israeli surveillance over Gaza all these years, the fact that Hamas could build 150 kilometers worth of tunnels with concrete and cement is itself shows that when it comes to an insurgency kind of a situation, a terrorist kind of a environment, anything can happen. And then you have an entirely open sea flank from which direction lots and lots of things can move into the Gaza Strip. So I don't foresee the end of resistance here in some form or the other, despite the fact there is huge amount of surveillance from the Israeli side today, including from the Egyptian side, the southern border. But I do perceive that movement of some logistics, some weapon systems, etc. will continue, like it happens in any part of the world where you find land borders are hardly obstacles to the movement of such logistics.
Yes, that's a bleak note, but that's where we have to end. Thank you so much for joining us and talking about how do you see the situation evolving in the region, which is not, for the moment, anywhere heading towards peace. Thank you for the moment, Syed Ata Hussain, Lieutenant General Syed Ata Hussain. Now, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit Russia from the 22nd and the 23rd of this month to attend the 16th BRICS summit to be held in Kazan. The summit, themed Strengthening Multilateralism for Just Global Development and Security, will provide an important platform for leaders to discuss key global issues. The summit will offer a valuable opportunity to assess the progress of initiatives launched by BRICS and to identify potential areas for future collaboration. During his visit, the PM is also expected to hold bilateral meetings with his counterparts from BRICS member countries. And ahead of the BRICS summit, Russian President Vladimir Putin has said the fast growth of the developed nations of BRICS group will generate most of the global economic growth in the coming years.
BRICS is already playing a remarkable role in today's global economy, but obviously this role will also be increasing tomorrow. The countries in our association are essentially the drivers of global economic growth. In the foreseeable future, BRICS will generate the main increase in the global GDP.
Russian President Vladimir Putin, during a media interaction with senior journalists from BRICS countries in Moscow, also said that Indian films hold a lot of popularity among Russian audiences, and there's a special TV channel with Indian movies being shown on it round the clock.
So we have a special TV channel with Indian movies shown round the clock. So we have a lot of interest in Indian films. As regards the economic side of the matter, cinema products and film industry is part of the economy and is to be duly regulated. India has made a lot of decisions to protect its own market, and it's not only about the film industry but also the automotive and other industries. But we are positive that if the Indian friends have this interest, we will find some common ground to promote the Indian films to the Russian market.
And the Russian president also said there's readiness from Russia to talk on pharma sector with India's Prime Minister Modi when he comes to Kazan for the BRICS summit. And he said that he was hopeful that there will be no difficulty.
And in a broad sense, at the market, it is very relevant and popular product. Alongside the pharmaceuticals, is going to be a very good undertaking. I'm ready to talk with our friend, the Prime Minister of India, when he arrives in Kazan. I'm sure we will come to terms 100%. No difficulties I observe there.
Now, India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar on Friday addressed the Indian School of Business Leadership Summit 2024 in Punjab's Mohali. While addressing the event, the Vice President underscored India's rise in the world would mean global peace, global stability and global harmony. The Vice President also observed that leadership must be deeply wedded to nationalism and that the nation must be kept at the centre to serve the greater good of the nation.
India has transformed in the last decade, becoming a $4 trillion economy with 8% growth potential, expanding infrastructure with 4 new airports and 1 metro systems built yearly. There is daily addition of 14 kilometers of highways, quality highways, world-class highways, and 6 kilometers of railways. Digital technologies have enabled massive public infrastructure projects.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. India surpasses China to become the largest two-wheeler market globally. And China's economy grew at the slowest pace since early 2023 in the third quarter.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has awarded the startups and MSME innovators of India who have developed cutting-edge disruptive technologies. The Dare to Dream 5 challenge was also thrown open for individual and industry innovators. Defence Minister urged India's private sector to take the lead in defence manufacture and innovation.
वक्त आ गया है कि डिफेंस सेक्टर में प्राइवेट सेक्टर की भागीदारी को अब लीड लेना चाहिए। पार्टिसिपेशन की बात नहीं कर रहा हूं, बल्कि प्राइवेट सेक्टर को अब लीड लेना चाहिए। ऐसा मैं इसलिए कह रहा हूं क्योंकि प्राइवेट इंडस्ट्री के अंदर तेजी से हो रहे परिवर्तनों को न सिर्फ एब्जॉर्ब करने की क्षमता है, बल्कि नई चीजें क्रिएट करने की भी उनके अंदर क्षमता है।
And Secretary of Department of Defence Research and Development and DRDO Chairperson Dr. Sameer Kamath said that the Technology Development Fund of DRDO provides funding of up to 10 crore Indian rupees for innovative deep technology.
But the focus was on indigenization of subsystems and technologies which were present in the equipment of our services. However, it has now evolved where we are looking at the same scheme to develop cutting-edge technologies in all the emerging and disruptive new technologies that have emerged in recent times, or as they are called, deep tech areas.
India has surpassed China to become the largest two-wheeler market in the world, driven by rising demand in rural areas, supported by favorable monsoon conditions and government initiatives for rural development. This is according to a research report that was released on Friday. Globally, two-wheeler sales grew 4% year-on-year in the first half of 2024, according to Counterpoint Research. Although India, Europe, North America, Latin America and the Middle East, that is West Asia and Africa saw growth, China and Southeast Asia experienced a decline. India's two-wheeler market saw a remarkable 22% year-on-year growth in the first half of this year. This strong performance allowed India to surpass China and become the world's largest two-wheeler market. Two-wheelers saw strong double-digit growth year-on-year in the second quarter of this fiscal in India. Also, China's economy grew at the slowest pace since early 2023 in the third quarter, and though consumption and factory output figures beat forecasts last month, a tumbling property sector remains a major challenge for Beijing as it races to revitalize growth. The world's second largest economy grew 4.6% in July to September. Official data shows a touch above a 4.5% forecast in a Reuters poll, but below the 4.7% pace in the second quarter. The latest figures come as the authorities have started to sharply increase stimulus measures in an effort to ensure the economy meets the government's 2024 growth target of around 5%. The fifth edition of Riyadh season is underway in the Saudi Arabian capital since the 12th of October. Events under it are being organized all across Riyadh. Suwaidi Park in Riyadh is one such venue that takes you on a journey around the world through cultures, music, dances, traditional foods and other attractions. DD India's Murmu reports from Riyadh.
A riveting performance by an Indian dance troupe enthralling visitors at Suwaidi Park in Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia. Visitors can be seen enjoying Bollywood numbers and Indian folk dances and watching Indian singing and dancing talent perform. Indian cuisine and culinary delights such as this stall of Indian Hyderabadi cuisine are drawing in visitors too. Under Riyadh season 2024, the spotlight is on India at the Suwaidi Park for a little over a week this October. Riyadh season was introduced in 2019 by Saudi authorities in support of Saudi Vision 2030. Since then, under its umbrella, a series of entertainment, cultural and sporting events are held in Riyadh for 5 months, from October to March every year. Indian Ambassador to Riyadh, Dr. Suhail Khan, took a tour of the park and witnessed the events firsthand.
This is a very important initiative which strengthens the bonds between the Indian communities, the other expatriate communities in the kingdom and the Saudi society. We welcome this initiative. We are very excited to see a huge crowd of our Indian community and the Saudi friends come here and enjoy the Indian culture.
Members of the Indian diaspora in Saudi Arabia were among the visitors at the park.
We have a lot of population of Indians here, and it's really encouraging that they are also recognizing our culture and trying to spread it to the Saudi people as well.
Very happy in this society. I feel very secure, and our cultural also they are giving so much recognition to our cultural activities.
Other than India, Suwaidi Park has a sprinkling of cuisines, cultures, concerts and entertainment events from other countries too, such as the Philippines, Indonesia, Pakistan, Yemen, Sudan, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, Bangladesh and Egypt. All in all, Suwedi Park has become a hub of global entertainment and cross-cultural connect between Saudi nationals and expatriate communities.
For 9 days in October this year, the flavor of Riyadh season at Suwedi Park in southern Riyadh is India. The idea is to showcase the intermingling and bonhomie between the Indian and Saudi society and bring the people of both the countries closer. With cameraman Pramod Negi, this is Murmu from Riyadh for DD India.
Now in Colombo, Sri Lankan India Society organized an event to mark the 78th year of India's independence. Sri Lanka's Foreign Minister Vijit Herath took part in the event and said that trade dynamics between India and Sri Lanka have immense potential in the future. He also recalled the generous assistance extended by India during the economic crisis. On the occasion, Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka Santosh Jha said that the bilateral relations between the two countries have progressed to a point where it is not possible to think of living apart. And now on to cricket, where India ended day 3 at 231 runs for the loss of 3 wickets, trailing by 125 runs in the first test match against New Zealand in Bengaluru. Sarfaraz Khan and Virat Kohli led India's fight back. Kohli smashed his 31st half-century, scoring 70 runs before losing his wicket to Glenn Phillips. Sarfaraz Khan remained unbeaten on 70 runs going into day 4. Earlier, Rachin Ravindra's powerful knock propelled New Zealand to 402. Tim Southee also added a quick 65 runs to add salt to wound. For India, Kuldeep Yadav and Ravindra Jadeja bagged 3 wickets each, with Siraj taking 2 and Bumrah scalping 1 each. And that's all we have for this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen and download the app now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.